Hey everybody, Crew Chief Eric here from Grand Touring Motorsports, and I'm joined by Jeremy Niels from Toyota of upstate New York, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we are here at the 20th anniversary of the Green Grand Prix, and we're in a brand new Prius Prime 2024, right? You've been doing this event for how many years now?
Oh, probably at least 15, 16 years.
So tell the audience a little bit about what the Green Grand Prix is about and your experiences so far.
Yeah, so it's really, it's not a race for speed, it's a race for fuel efficiency or just efficiency based on your future powertrain. So it's really geared to spark the interest of people who want to look at alternative fuel vehicles and reduce their carbon footprint, essentially. So it's a great event that gets not just the average everyday person can bring their car in and drive on Watkins Glen racetrack, but also a lot of colleges and young people in the area compete as well. So it's great to get those youth individuals' interests sparked by the Green Grand Prix.
Now, when you started doing the Green Grand Prix, this was when they had already moved to Watkins Glen International. You hadn't done it around the lake, right?
Correct. I think the first time I did it was the first year they were at the track.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah. So traditionally it was 80 miles around Lake Seneca in a proper SCCA-sponsored time distance rally. So we've moved to Watkins Glen International. We're basically going the same distance, 80 miles, however long that takes. We have a set speed that we're supposed to sort of achieve, right, as an average. And Bob told us about that earlier. So 45 miles?
45 miles an hour is our average.
So how are you at calculating what the lap should be like?
Well, that's what the internet's for, I would say. Yeah, there's a lot of sites you can look it up pretty easily, so that's basically what I use.
So what's our target lap time? Have you figured it out?
Around 3 minutes, 16 seconds.
Okay, and have you figured out where you got to, let's say, set the cruise control to achieve that optimum time?
I probably won't be using the cruise control, but yeah, I mean, with some experience you learn there's certain areas where you can make up some time around the track, certain areas where you're going to lose a little time, and you can kind of go by certain turns to see how far you are, what your time is for that lap, to see if you're kind of ahead or behind.
Okay. And you're not using any software to figure that out?
No, that's just, yeah.
Little mental gymnastics?
Exactly. You know, it's a long lap, so you got some time to think.
Yeah, and we're heading out onto our out lap now, and we'll switch to the onboard view of the track here momentarily. So we've got 80 miles. It's roughly a 3-minute lap. That's going to take us 240 minutes. Is that about right? So about 2 hours to complete 80 miles on the track. Are you predominantly sticking to the tightest line around the track? Or are you going to be driving like the race line? I mean, it's raining today.
Yeah, I mean, you tend to go with the race line, but you know, there's always traffic to deal with. Not everybody's on the same lap schedule as you will be, so you'll have some people going a little faster at times, some people kind of in the way, you might say. So you know, it varies, but you try to keep to the race line.
And how have you done in the past?
Some years I have won my class, either fuel efficiency or perfect lap time. So
nice.
You know, a bit competitive.
Well, I ran it last year in the diesel Grand Cherokee, if you remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I kind of said, well, you know, that's the target speed. Let me set it to that. It's got enough torque. It didn't matter if we were going through the boot or otherwise. It could just maintain that, whatever it was, 46 miles an hour with ease. And it turned out pretty good. We did about 33 miles to the gallon in a 5,000-pound SUV, so it's not bad. It's probably. So what do you think this is going to end up doing?
Oh, it's a good question. So this is my first time driving the new Prius Prime on the track. I've had the Prius before. So the Prime, with the 40-mile EV range, it's going to boost up my economy significantly. But the extra weight of the battery, of course, hurts you when you're in hybrid mode. So you get a few miles per gallon less in hybrid. So, you know, I'm hoping I can be in somewhere in the 80 mile per gallon range. We'll see, maybe more.
And how does that compare to the previous years? How did you do with the older Prius?
So I've been in around 70 with the older Prius, the previous generation. Every year I drive a different vehicle. Last year I drove the new Toyota Crown. I've driven a Sienna. You name it. Basically any hybrid vehicle we've had, I've had it at some point during one of these events.
Very nice. and we're going to be running the NASCAR configuration. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, it's actually the short version of Watkins Glen. It's actually considered course 2. If you look over the history of Watkins Glen, the original course downtown, course 2 is actually the NASCAR configuration, and course 3 is when they extended it and added the boot, which is what most of us run on. So I've run the NASCAR circuit at speed several times. It's a bit sketchy, and so luckily we're going a lot slower, and it is raining still, but they say it is going to clear up, so it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be a lot of laps.
A lot of laps, yeah. Thankfully, there's one pit stop.
Yeah, because we're taking about a mile off of the circuit doing the NASCAR version of it. So, but yeah, a lot of fun. It's always a blast to be up here at Watkins Glen. It doesn't matter, rain, shine, in the cold, in the summer. It doesn't really matter. It's a beautiful scenery, beautiful place to be, full of history and heritage, too.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a real treat to be able to drive on the track.
So, the 2024 Prius Prime, how does this differ from some of the earlier cars, and what makes it special?
So this is our 5th generation hybrid powertrain. So of course the first generation, way back in 1997, launched in Japan and came to the US in 2001 model year. It was a quirky little 4-door sedan, and it didn't have a lot of power, but it was very fuel efficient at the time as far as sedans go. And it wasn't until 2004 when we brought out the next generation where it really gained a lot of popularity. And it was a new design. It was that hatchback design, very aerodynamic. And there was a waiting list at dealers to be able to purchase one. But when you fast forward now to the 2024, this car, what's so spectacular about it, I mean, it's got the 5th generation powertrain, which is a lot more powerful. 196 horsepower versus, just over 120 horsepower in the previous generation.
Wow.
Yeah, so
but the weight also went up from one generation to another.
Yeah,
right?
it did. But with this new powertrain, it's even more efficient. So you got more power, better fuel efficiency. But I think the thing that's most appealing now about this car is the emotional design of it. It looks not like the quirky car that it has been known for many years. It's a sexy car. It's very stylish. It's sleek. It's sporty. It handles great. It's
roomy.
It's roomy. It's got a lot of technology in it. And when you're on the track, especially, I'm excited to be able to drive on the track today because it is so quick in its handling and the steering. Wherever you point it, it just really goes. It doesn't feel like your traditional Prius of years past.
Well, I'm glad that Toyota decided to kind of take a step away from that, because people did wonder, and I maybe I speak in generalities here. It's like, why does the Prius look the way it looks?
Yeah.
Why can't it be a normal car with this hybrid power plant? And you do see that in the RAV4, the Corolla Crosstrek. I think that's the right name for it, right?
Yeah, the Corolla Cross.
The CUV, and then you've got things like the Crown, where and it's like the Prius sort of was always this, almost felt like an experiment, right?
So when we launched Prius, it was, one of the few hybrids. It was one of the first hybrids in the country, and I think we felt it needed to stand out and be unique.
Yeah.
It couldn't be just like every other sedan or every other hatchback on the road. So it needed to look different and be unique and quirky, if you will.
Yeah.
So fast forward now, 20 years later, where most of our lineup is hybrid, or at least offered in hybrid. There's no need to make it stand out and look, say, different than other vehicles.
Right.
Now we can make it stylish and appealing as far as the design goes.
Do you think some of the other manufacturers might have had a hand in influencing that? I mean, if you look at Tesla, you look at Audi, some of the others that are coming to market with cars like these?
Yes, I think for sure when you look at some of the competitors maybe over the last 5, 6, 7 years that have come out and gained popularity, not necessarily because of the powertrain, but because of the design. And we like to listen to our customers, and when the feedback is, hey, it's a great car, but I wish it was a little more stylish, then of course that's what we're going to take a look at. Very
cool. Well, I am excited to ride in this. I mean, we've done our sighting lap here, and we're about to go out on track. We are now underway, 20th anniversary Green Grand Prix. So picking up on the conversation where we left off, we had just finished our sighting lap. We were talking about the car, all the changes. You guys can see here that the track's pretty wet. Having raced here for many, many years and coaching here, there is a particular way to go around Watkins Glen for a fast lap. That doesn't necessarily count when we're doing an efficiency run. But the joke always is when it's raining, there is no such thing as a line. It's wherever you can find grip.
Right.
So that'll be important. I'm sure that the new Prius Prime has lots of smarts in it to, for driver safety, traction control, things like that. So I don't expect it to suddenly start understeering or doing anything weird.
No. Let's hope not.
So we are setting out now. We're doing about 43 miles an hour. The computer's telling us we've already sort of clocked 63 miles per gallon. So we're relying on the onboard computer to kind of tell us what's happening, right?
Yes.
And we're running a new app this year as well. We're not running the old MyLaps traditional transponders that the track would use. We've got a phone-based application. Now, what's that have you messed around with this? What's that telling us?
Not too much yet. So it's telling us our distance so far. It'll also tell us our lap time in seconds. So that was really the most important thing is the lap time. And we'll see how close we can get to that ideal lap time.
So what are some of you were talking earlier about some of the places where you feel like you can make up time on the course. So what are some of the tricks of running the Green Grand Prix?
So of course you want to maximize kind of your regen capability to recharge the battery on the downhill side. So if you can pick up a little speed going downhill and then kind of carry that through some of the uphill or some of the more flat areas where you won't have to use any of the ICE engine for even any of the battery power. So
now that plays in when we're using the long course, but on the short course you don't have as much elevation change.
Not
right?
as much, unfortunately. Yeah, there's a little bit there, so a little downhill curve
coming through turn 5 out of where normally the bus stop would be. We're actually not even using that. We're kind of even running it in a classic configuration where we're bypassing that chicane on the straightaway.
Yeah, which is, I think, good for efficiency.
Now, having run this in years past, I did scratch my head quite a bit, like watching people's lines, where they're going. Now, granted, I'm not trying to critique them, but I'm just sort of like, really? Is that where we should be turning? Now, we also have this exercise we have to do at some point during the race where we have to take a mandatory, was it 4-minute pit stop?
4-minute pit stop.
You're at 3:15, it looks like, as we cross the start.
Almost. Pretty close.
Do you want to hit, what did you say, 3:03?
3:16.
3:16, okay, that's good.
Second off.
We need a place to put that phone so you can see it better, Got a phone clip. Ooh. Did it track out naturally?
Yeah. It's funny, it has, so this car has what we call proactive driving assist, and it will kind of look ahead and see if there's cars in front of you and provide some gentle braking.
Oh, interesting.
When you approach them. But it'll also reduce your speed into a curve, to give you a more safe speed as you enter the curve. And of course on the racetrack, it's that turn 1 is a little aggressive for the car, so it wants to slow you down a little bit. So sometimes it's best to just disable those features on the track at least. Great for the street, but...
So is all that stuff configurable?
It is.
From a driver perspective?
Yeah, okay. You can turn it on or off, adjust sensitivity as well.
Yeah, we call those the nannies.
Right.
In racing.
Yeah. And well, it's good for a lot of people on the road, just not for this event, maybe.
So when you're running the long configuration of the track, what's your favorite turn or segment? Do you have, you haven't driven so many laps?
The long configuration, the boot is just a lot of fun because of the banking, the elevation change, and it's, I think we've only done it twice the last 2 years.
Okay.
So not this year, but the previous 2. So that's always a treat to be able to drive through that.
Yeah, I ran the full course last year, which, it's like second nature too. It's like, oh, turn here, just let it apex, let it come through, What do you think's the most challenging turn for you on the long course?
I don't know that 45 miles an hour, there's too many challenging turns, honestly.
Well, like we're in the middle of what would be normally turn 5 right now,
Yeah.
like headed back into NASCAR here. So this connects, running the short course, we're connecting 5 and 10 together and bypassing 6 through 9. So on a regular day, 9 is probably the most complicated turn because it's so narrow. There's zero room for error. The track out, we're actually heading into the track out right now of what would be 9. There, you have this Armco is so close. If you mess up, you're going to bounce from one side to the other. So I would say that's a challenging corner, but 5 can be hair raising at speed.
Oh, it speeds for sure. Yeah. And you know, as you come in here, this gets a little tighter.
Yeah, what would be turn 10,
Yeah.
and then approaching turn 11 onto the main straight. I think turn 1 is a blast.
That's by far the most fun. Coming downhill, you get that banking. It's just fun to go into it. Unfortunately, we couldn't go a little faster, but to enter and then track out as you extend on the turn 2.
What's fun about turn 1 on a normal race day is that you can really push the boundary there because there's so much margin for error. You are at 18, 19, where we are in traffic.
Yeah,
So now we're gonna have to
tough.
make that up. We need like a little ledge to like put your phone.
That's good.
I could probably put it up here.
No, I doubt it will stay.
Let's give it a try. Let's see. Testament to the Prius's smooth suspension if it stays there.
Yeah.
So what we did is we positioned his phone up on the buttons for the HVAC system. So we'll see if it stays there. We can get a better glance at what's going on. I do like the fact that, you know, Toyota continues to at least supply buttons. That's been a complaint in some new cars. With these multifunction interfaces, they're like, why do I have to touch something to turn on my headlights? You know?
Yeah, so HVAC is important, I think, for people because it's something that they want to quickly access.
Yep.
You know, just the temperature and the volume knob is key. You got to have a volume knob for sure.
Yeah.
On your multimedia, but you know, they were trying to do away with some buttons and some complexity, but sometimes on the engineering side, it seems like a good idea, but you can take a little too far, and then people are missing those features that they've become, you know, used to using for so many years. So it's always a trade-off. You know, if you do away with some things, people want them back, then they may come back the next generation.
Right. So many different variants. So you said 5 generations of the Prius over the years.
The 5th generation hybrid powertrain.
So this red one we just passed, the Prius C, that was like the compact version of what, 2 generations back?
Yeah, subcompact, and it was a great car. I mean, very fuel efficient, but it was kind of the more affordable hybrid powertrain or hybrid vehicle at the time.
So sort of designed to compete with, let's say, the Ford C-Max and some of the other stuff of that time period?
Like the inside, I think the Honda inside was more in that price point. It was around the $20,000 range, and you know,
So like the Chevy Bolt.
right?
Yeah.
So the hybrids at the time were thought of at least as a little bit more, you know, pricey because the technology was new. So you know, and then of course now as we progressed and advanced the 5th generation, the price has come down significantly, and now there's hardly a difference between a ICE engine and a hybrid powertrain vehicle. Sometimes less than $1,000.
So what? Speaking of price, since we're on that subject, what does the Prius Prime clock in at, you know, MSRP?
So it depends on the version you get and the equipment, but you're going to be looking on the low 30,000 to this one is fully loaded, peaks out at 44,000.
Oh wow, okay. So that's in good competition range with things like the Tesla Model 3, with the Ford Mach-E, other things that are in that, you know, 40 to 46 or $7,000 range. Because the new range of kind of that, you know, middle car has shifted up. It used to be, what can I get for 35,000 or 32,000, right? So we've kind of moved everything about 10,000 bucks, and that's really I guess that target market, right? So we're at crossed the line at 317 and change. Is that better for you? You want it back?
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, traffic's a little bit of an issue here. People perhaps are going a bit on the slow side, especially into turn 1, which guess we're not allowed to pass.
Well, we're behind by 2 seconds for the last 2 to 3 seconds for the last 2 or 3 laps. You might have an opportunity to just blast by these guys in the straightaway.
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna have to.
Because either that or you're losing 3 seconds a lap staying behind these guys. So this, we're talking about the hybrid is a combination of electric and ICE power. So the Prius in the old days, 1500cc or 1.5 liter engine, then they bumped it up to 1.8. Does this new Prius maintain a 1.8 or did they go a little bit bigger?
So for the first time we have a 2-liter engine.
Okay.
So yes, the biggest engine in the Prius so far, and it is partially the reason we have much more power from this new powertrain, but it really gives you the performance, and the Prius is 196 horsepower, but the Prime gives you a little bit more with the higher output electric motor, so it's 220 horsepower.
Okay.
So almost 100 horsepower more than the old Prius Prime.
Wow.
So that's a big increase from one generation to the next.
So is this motor shared with any of the other Toyotas, like the Corolla?
Corolla Cross, yeah, it has the same 2-liter engine.
Okay.
Or a variant of it. It's not the exact same tuning, but yeah, the same overall engine.
Now, 5th generation hybrid, are the hybrid platforms shared across the Toyota models as well? I could understand like the Sienna maybe being something different because different packaging, things like that. So how similar is this to the Corolla Cross, to the Crown, to some of the other hybrid Toyotas?
So what we have done over the last, I would say 5-6 years, we came out with a new family of platforms. It's called the TNGA, Toyota New Global Architecture, essentially. And all of our vehicles are based off of just a handful of these platforms. Of course, our trucks are on one. But this TNGA platform allows us to easily make it wider or longer based on the vehicle we're looking
So
to
that's
build.
similar to what Volkswagen implemented,
Right.
the MLB, MLQ, and all those platforms.
Yeah, so it gives us the capability to be very flexible in manufacturing, build multiple vehicles on one line, and of course you gain a lot of efficiency and cost savings there as well. And you're not doing all the R&D to develop a single platform for 1 or 2 cars. You can spread that R&D cost across multiple car lines.
So true or false, Toyota has been at the forefront of the hybrid technology for a very, very long time. But I also hear that they own a lot of the patents and they will license out the hybrids to other manufacturers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to share the technology. Only helps the industry. We do a lot of things that I would say is very unselfish for a company who's a for-profit company who's competing with other companies in this industry, but yet we're very eager to share a lot of what we've developed. It's just like our hydrogen fuel cell technology. We put it out there and just said anybody that wants it can use it. So sometimes it's not about necessarily helping the company as much as it is as helping the industry, and ultimately if your goal is to reduce carbon emissions and everybody is able to utilize some of that technology that we've developed, then it's really a common goal that we're both sharing, right, to reduce the carbon footprint across all vehicles, not just Toyotas.
And that's interesting you bring that up. So there's been a little bit of confusion in the news lately, and maybe you're privy to some of this, and let's kind of unpack this for a moment. On previous drive-through news episodes that we put out on the Motoring Podcast Network as part of the Break Fix podcast, we covered different parts of the autosphere and the automotive industry, and so there was a stance by Toyota for quite a while that was like, we're not going to go full EV, hybrid is the way, and I believe that as well. It's a great compromise between the ICE world and the full electric world. They all have their issues. So hybrid has been one of those things where, I've joked, let's model it after the trains. So we're not going to build diesel electric hybrids, those kinds of things, but there's a lot of potential there. But then recently we've been seeing these articles come out about the new all-electric Tacoma or the new all-electric this from Toyota. I'm like, wait, so have we pulled back a little bit on that stance of we're not going to do full EVs? What do you know from your perspective?
So we will continue to offer a diverse portfolio of powertrains moving forward. Not that we don't feel like we should move EVs. We have an EV, we'll have more in the future, but we really are listening to our customers, and we want to provide the vehicles that our customers want. And if the technology isn't ready or advanced enough to meet everyone's needs to go full EV, and some people, and there's a certain percentage of Americans that will say they don't even consider an EV. They would never consider right now purchasing an EV. So if you were to go full EV with your product lineup, you're basically telling those people, like, don't buy our products. So we can provide hybrid vehicles, we can provide plug-in hybrids, because they're a bridge to get to EVs. We have fuel cell vehicles that we sell in the state of California, and we're going to have a diverse lineup of powertrains to meet our customers' needs, whatever those needs may be. So it's not that we don't like EVs, we do, and we're going to have more in the future. But again, we want to provide the vehicles that our customers want to buy.
Right. And, I've been saying for quite a long time, like you said, there's such a diverse portfolio, and Toyota's the one to watch. Not only in the sense that as they sort of turn their gaze on things, the rest of the market tends to follow Toyota's, vision, the direction they're going in, things like that. But it's been really, really cool over the last couple of years to see the transition back into the enthusiast market, right?
Yeah.
They brought us, the BRZ and the FRS and things like that in conjunction with Subaru, and then the new Supra came out, but it's the GR cars that are really exciting, right? Like overseas we get the Yaris, but then they brought us the GR Corolla and all these kinds of things. I mean, that's exciting, and we joke that other companies maybe have lost their way, and it's like, where is that heritage car? Where is that halo car? Where's that excitement to bring in the younger group? And so I think Toyota's sort of, I hate to say, kind of like BMW, there's something for everybody. And overseas, Alfa Romeo is the same way. They've got the economy cars, they've got EVs, they've got the quadrifolios, there's something for everybody. And I think Toyota's checking those boxes. So I'm really excited to see what's coming. And I kind of want to pivot and talk a little bit about the Crown, because that's the first time we're seeing that car here in the United States. You're like, a new name in the Toyota line, and it really isn't. It's more of a heritage car.
Yeah, it's been around for decades and decades, and very popular overseas. But first time, of course, last year we brought it to the U.S., and now we're launching the kind of the SUV version of the Crown Signia. Here in just a few months. This summer it'll be coming out, and that's going to be another great vehicle for us, hybrid only, of course. And it's really it's our flagship. So the Crown in general to drive, it's a dream. I drove one here on the track last year, Crown Platinum. I mean, handles awesome. It's got a high lift, so it's easy to get in and out of. So regardless of the demographic, the ease of entry and exit of the vehicle is much better than your typical sedan, which sits lower. And it's all-wheel drive and hybrid at the same time. So it's what a lot of people are looking for, right? Great fuel efficiency, good performance, all-wheel drive, in a very stylish and good performing sedan.
So does it share the same drivetrain as the Prius Prime does, or is it beefed up as well? Because it's an even bigger car.
Yeah, so it's a similar, so we have two variants of the hybrid powertrain for the Crown. So we have our traditional Toyota hybrid system, which is a similar layout to a Prius, but a bigger engine, 2.5 liter engine. And then we have the Hybrid Max, which uses a 2.4 liter turbo engine, but it also is paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission, which is a little bit unique for Toyota. Up until just the last couple of years, we've never incorporated a transmission, traditional transmission, into our hybrid powertrain. They've always gone just with the hybrid power split device, or the ECVT as it's called. And now what that allows us to do is provide a performance variant of that vehicle. So the Crown Platinum gets the Hybrid Max, which is 340 horsepower.
Wow.
And in a sedan, that's the most powerful Toyota sedan we've offered in the U.S. to date. And that gives a big boost in performance. And but if that's not your thing, if you'd rather have the fuel efficiency, then you can get the traditional hybrid powertrain in the Crown.
And you're seeing a lot of that also carry over to the more luxury brand Lexus, the other side of Toyota as well. Absolutely. Right? So there's a lot of shared technology there as well. So you mentioned the Crown SUV. Now, pardon me if I'm wrong, but you've got the Toyotas, you've got the Lexuses, and then there's a level even above that in Japan, right? Where they were building these big estate, super luxury hand-built, like ambassadors cars and things like that.
Yeah,
right?
Almost like limousine type,
exactly.
Yeah,
now,
cars you're driven around in.
Exactly, and they're super cool, and some people have imported them here in the United States. I've also heard that those might be coming to the U.S.
I don't know about that. I'm not aware of that.
There's like a third row truck version we were reading about that they might be bringing over.
Yeah, in Japan they have some interesting vehicles, some very unique vehicles that we don't see here in the United States. It's, to bring a higher level luxury in and a different nameplate, I would say, I don't know, that would be a challenge, or I'd question why create it.
Yeah, because it's up there in that Rolls-Royce Bentley sort of category of cars.
But certainly, who knows what happens in the future, but nothing that I'm aware of at the time.
So is there anything on the horizon, any spoilers of things that are coming, some changes, maybe for 2025?
Well, I think the big news we just released this week was the new 4Runner. So that was long awaited. People have been waiting, very loyal following with that vehicle, and even as old as it was, last time it was really redesigned was 2010. And the sales have been great. It's very loyal followers, and now with this new 4Runner, it goes even further than the old one. So we've got two new powertrains, a hybrid version of the.
You can feel it walking.
Yeah, a little bit on the painted lines, right? But we have a couple of new versions of the 4Runner as well. We have the new Trail Hunter, as we saw with Tacoma. So that's kind of your overlanding group who wants to go slow off-road, long distances. And then we also have a new a new TRD Pro version that's been so popular and sought
it's like
after.
the state bird of Denver. Right?
Yeah,
everything's TRD Pro.
Everything's TRD Pro.
Now I will say, sun is starting to peek out from behind the clouds, and as you probably know, a drying track is more dangerous than a wet track.
Yes.
So that's why back in turn 11 we were getting some of that, some of that slide there. But hopefully the track will dry out, and that'll kind of change the way we can approach things here.
Yeah, it's always a little more fun in the dry.
Yeah, so the new 4Runner, is that going to keep with tradition and being body on frame like the older ones were? Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so and it shares the new TNGA-F architecture with the new Land Cruiser that's coming out here just probably next month. It'll be hitting dealership lots, as well as the Tacoma, Tundra, and Sequoia. So that new frame is shared across an entire lineup of body-on-frame vehicles.
Very cool. Very cool. So if there was one Toyota product you could bring over that we don't get, what would it be?
The GR Yaris, probably. Yeah, that's just a cool car.
It 100% is.
To be that much power in such a small package, wow, what a blast. I mean, the GR Corolla is a lot of fun, but I can only imagine that in a little bit lighter weight, smaller version would be just so much fun to have.
So do you daily a Toyota yourself?
Yeah. Well, I have a company vehicle, so I'm in a lot of different vehicles. From the Prius Prime today. I'm gonna pick up a Tundra later. I've got some towing to do this weekend, so
nice.
We'll have that for the weekend, and then who knows what I'll get next week. it's always something different, which is always fun and exciting.
Let's do this. All right. Well, we are on lap 9, so that means we've been out here roughly 21 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We got a ways to go. That also means, so 9 laps, we've done about 19 miles, right? Maybe a little bit more, about 20, maybe 22 miles or so. What does our trip meter say we've done? We had to reset that at the beginning, right?
21.1 miles with our out lap.
Geez, 60 miles still to go.
Yeah. We're not close yet.
No, not at all.
Yeah, we still got a pit stop to make too.
So let's talk about that. What is this? How does this pit stop work?
So it's a 4-minute pit stop from the time you enter the pits to the time you exit, right? And if you're lucky enough, you can hit the porta potty in those 4 minutes. But just depends. Yeah, if there's a line, you might want to take another lap. Yeah, it's a mandatory pit stop, whether you want to or not.
So does the new software allow you like a countdown timer for the pit stop, or you just sort of got to calculate that on your own?
You just got to look, kind of keep an idea in your mind when you come in, maybe on your watch, and then hopefully make it to the end of the pit row by the 4-minute mark.
Got it. So do you just sit around and check your email, or you walk away from the car? Do you normally have a co-driver? You guys switch?
I'm usually by myself. Occasionally I'll have a passenger, but nothing, not typical. I'm usually by myself.
Yeah, last year I kind of struggled with that. I had some people on the outside, sending me like notes over the live stream, like, okay, so this is when you cross. We're keeping track of your time. Yeah, it was my lifeline. If I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, phone a friend, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was complicated, doing it by myself and trying to live stream and all that. So, looks like we got a Lucid Air behind us.
Yeah.
There's a whole gaggle of cars back there.
First time for Lucid here at the event, I believe.
What do you think of those?
Very interesting car. Really cool concept. A lot of unique features in the design, and
I think the front looks like a Cylon. It needs the red light. Battlestar Galactica. Down there.
Been at a few events where some of the Lucid reps were there, and they've offered for me to come and drive it at one of their showrooms. So I'd love to take that opportunity at some point. I mean, it really looks like a neat vehicle to experience.
And if memory serves, the folks that started Lucid were sort of like defectors from Tesla or something like that.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would take to start a young upstart car company. When you look at most of the car companies around, and you look at the amount of experience they've had, how many?
They're like 100 years old.
Yeah. To start from scratch and build a car, it's just incredibly complex, and all the things you have to learn over these decades to build a quality vehicle and to bring it to market. And I give them credit when whether it's Tesla or Lucid or Rivian, they have brought out products, and they're nice vehicles. So that's a true testament to their passion for building one of these EVs. It's not easy, I'll just say.
All right, according to our app, your best lap 3:12, 4 seconds faster than the projected lap time. And right now, coming out of 11, we're at 2:58. So we gotta kill some time. We gotta slow down a little bit.
Stop and grab some coffee.
Yeah, right. It is really tough. I mean, TSDs or TDRs, I guess, time distance rallies, right? But they are complicated. They are hard to do. It's not just point to point and this and that. You're really trying to fit within this tight window. And it's sort of, I hate to say, sort of a dying form of motorsport.
Yeah, it's not as popular as it used to be.
I can only imagine what it was like going around the lake, though. That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful drive, especially on a nice day.
But then you really that's even harder if you think about it, because then you're out there with regular people, and it's like you get stuck behind somebody that's going under the speed limit. That's got to be tough.
And it's not easy to pass on those roads around the lake.
Not at all. Not at all. the Lucid got around us.
Yeah. Which isn't always a good thing. Being passed, you'd think is a bad thing on a track, but not always. Not in this scenario. It could be bad for them, good for us.
That Lucid's pulling away, that's for sure. So behind us, we have the Prius C, and then behind him, we've got that modified VW Caddy pickup truck.
Interesting.
Running a diesel.
Yeah.
I feel for him. I told him he's going to win his class. I said, had I been here, you know. So, but it's all good. You know, and that brings up an interesting question that a lot of folks had last year. There's so many, I guess I want to say, regular cars in the Green Grand Prix as well. So I made the argument that diesel is an alternative to gasoline. If we're saying alternative fuels are an alternative to gas, then diesel's an alternative to that. But what about some of these, let's say, quote unquote, regular cars that are out here, you know, with the rest of the EVs and the hybrids and things like that? How does that all work?
Well, you know, it's an open event, so you can bring anything. I mean, if you wanted to
Cheap
bring
track day.
Yeah. I guess you could look at it that, but it's also an opportunity for people to see what they can do with a regular car, not a hybrid, not an EV.
Yeah.
What kind of fuel efficiencies can I achieve? And it's pretty remarkable that now even your ICE cars have become so incredibly efficient in terms of, you know, if you drive it properly, you can really achieve incredible gas mileage without, you know, electric motor assist, let's say.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with turbocharging.
Turbocharging, you know, I mean, there's a lot of tricks. Aerodynamics play some in it. The CVTs are a little more popular. You get 8 and 10-speed transmissions. We have on a lot of cars now, we're starting to put grille shutters. So they're basically shutters that are in front of behind the grille, and they will open or close based on cooling needs. But when they close, less airflow goes through the engine bay, which is less aerodynamic drag, right? So it's a little more
Which is
efficient.
funny you say that, because my Jeep, which is 10 years old this year, celebrating its 10-year-old anniversary, it already had that technology because Mercedes had developed that for it. And what's also interesting is because I have the air ride suspension, it also, as you sped up, lowered itself, and then it would tilt the nose down to create an extra. I mean, it's a brick on wheels, right? So I thought that was really interesting how let's say Fiat restylized the WK2 Jeeps. I joke that they're the WK2.5s, but then there was a lot of this really interesting German technology carried over from Mercedes, where, you know, you're talking about those flaps and things like that, it already exists. And some of that was also because on a diesel power plant, you need to keep the engine warmer in the winter, right? So you got to close the radiator down. So that is pretty cool. But it's really interesting how some of these technologies they either trickle down from racing or they're borrowed from other manufacturers. Like, never thought to use that, but we're going to reconstitute it for this particular thing and look at, you know, this type of efficiency that we picked up. It's busy out here. It's
a lot of traffic today.
Do you know how many cars by chance we have running?
I don't. I mean, I'm car 37, so
yeah. I saw numbers in the 40s, so probably beyond that as well. I think last year there was 60 some.
Yeah, it seems like every year it gets a little bit bigger. You know, and there's a little more interest, so which is good. You know, we need it to grow.
Well, the rule of thumb when we're doing like a high-performance driver's education is about 15 to 20 cars per mile, but we also had to shorten the track down. So that's, you know, that adds a lot of traffic.
It condenses everybody together.
So looking back over Toyota's long history, is there a vintage Toyota that gets you excited? Something you'd love to have in your garage?
Well, there's probably a couple, depending on the day of the week, but...
Starlet, Corolla FX16.
I think, the Mark IV Supra, maybe.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
That's certainly on the wish list. And then an FJ40, probably. You know,
nice.
Those were just really cool. Rugged, or, you know, FJ60, too. Those were if you want to take the family with you. You know, maybe you want that.
Do you think the FJ is going to come back? I mean, the Cruiser, it sold okay, right?
Yeah, the FJ Cruiser, it did sell well. And then, of course, when we announced it was going to be sunset, as we like to say, then it even got more popular. But I don't know if the FJ will make a reappearance, because this new Land Cruiser has so much of what kind of FJ was.
Yeah.
And I think this will.
It doesn't have the little doors though, right?
Right. And you know, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think most people like the ease of access of real doors to get into the back seat. So, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that was an interesting fad, right? Because Saturn did that, and Mazda did that with the RX-8.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, you know, obviously it's a carryover idea from some of the pickup trucks too,
right,
with the small little doors. So you don't see it too often. Once there was one of them that only had 3 doors, right? It only had like the spare door on one side of the car, which was a style choice.
I think that was a Saturn, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the Ion or something.
Yeah, I believe so.
At least they didn't do, was it the Pacer with 2 different length doors, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark IV Supra, I mean, what a fantastic car. That goes down in history as one of those iconic sports cars.
Yeah.
Still looks good today. Just timeless.
Yeah, timeless.
Like the 3rd Gen RX-7 and some of the other cars of that time period, where you're like, what year is that? So lots of partnerships and collaborations, Toyota with, let's say, BMW and with Subaru and things like that. Are we going to see more of that in the future?
It's a good question. You know, some of the low volume cars, which are fun cars, like the 86, the GR86 and the GR Supra, you know, it's likely we wouldn't have those vehicles if we couldn't share some of the R&D and development costs with another manufacturer who can sell a version of that car, or at least some variant of it. So I think those partnerships are important, so we can have some of these vehicles that we may not have seen otherwise. And of course, everybody's wanted the Supra to come back for
forever,
for 20 years. So you know, it's back, and we'll see what happens in the future if there's other partnerships. I think you'll see in general some collaboration in the industry, maybe not in specific vehicles, but just in technology in general. And we're seeing that a lot already with especially with more push for EVs. Some automakers don't really want to spend or don't have the R&D budget to start from scratch, so they're sharing some of that with, you know, another automaker to help share those development costs and bring products to market.
So I've had the luxury of coaching some Supras on track. Have you gotten a chance to drive one? What do you think?
Oh yeah, when we did our launch event, it was at the Circuit of the Americas, so that was a great place to drive the Supra, you know, on Coda. So I think it's for the money, the performance you get. It's well balanced. It's got a lot of bang for the buck, and it just looks really cool. You know, I think if you remember back years ago, we brought out a couple of concept vehicles,
mm-hmm.
the FT1 concept, and it shares a lot of that design, you know, with the production car, which was really cool to see.
It shares a ton of DNA with the Z4 as well, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's also that, and I'm sure enthusiasts really know, but other people might not know, there is another variant of the Supra with a manual and the 4-cylinder turbo, right?
Yeah.
Which is still BMW's power plant?
Yes.
Okay. How is that doing? Are you seeing that sell pretty well?
The 4-cylinder version?
Yeah.
So for the US, the 4-cylinder version was discontinued.
Oh, really?
Or I think it will be. If you want, I guess if you want the Supra, it's going to be
6-cylinder or nothing.
6-cylinder. Yeah. I mean, that's what people are opting for.
But still only with the flappy paddle gearbox, which is BMW's transmission,
right.
No manual. They've sort of flip-flopped on bringing manuals back and then not, and the M3 community was up in arms. You know, we want our manual transmissions back, stuff like that. So, but no manual in the 6-cylinder Supra.
Oh, there is a manual.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, this one came out last year.
Oh, very cool.
So there's only the automatic and the 4-cylinder currently.
Oh, okay.
But the 6-cylinder came for this year's it just came this past year, and it's been popular. We have a special edition with the manual transmission as well. It's goes back to the roots, right? Everybody wants the 6-speed manual, turbo inline 6, and with the performance that you can get out of that vehicle. Now, of course, the automatic's faster, but it's the nostalgia. I think everybody wants control.
Of course, it's more fun on the track too,
right?
Doing your heel-toe downshifts going into corners, And you've driven a GR Corolla?
I have.
What do you think of that?
It's just a lot of fun. I mean, for a little small hatch, the 6-speed manual, the grip it has, and then the power when you hit second gear, and it just takes off.
All-wheel drive in those too.
Yeah, and it's just got tons and tons of grip.
Making like 300 horse, just like the Yaris, right?
Yeah.
Out of a 3-cylinder turbo.
Yeah. Pretty remarkable. Yeah, 100 horsepower per cylinder.
It's pretty awesome. And it's clocking in at a decent price too. And then there's a special edition of that, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, it's like the Mitsumi edition or something.
The Maritzo
edition. Maritzo edition.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
So yeah, that's Akio Toyota's racing name.
Yeah.
So that's his special edition. They only made a handful of those. That was a hard one to get, but such a cool car. Rear seat delete. Forged carbon roof. It's like
the
vehicle.
GT3 of Toyotas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, on the topic of cross collaboration, there's been a lot of DNA being brought in from other companies, but people might not remember it went the other way for a while when Toyota was supplying power plants and chassis and things to Lotus.
Yeah,
when they were building the Elise,
or their
right?
1.8 liter. Yeah.
So that brings out of the Celica, right? So that brings to mind the MR2. We ever going to see a midship runabout?
Oh, good question. I'm not really sure. I would certainly like to see it. I mean, it certainly has a lot of heritage in around the world, but in the U.S. as well. But time will tell, I guess, if that car comes back. I got to credit Akio Toyota with his passion of performance cars and what he really did with the company, and in terms of making cars that are fun to drive again. And that's where at the time the Scion FRS, that's how that came about, and then of course now is the GR86, and of course the Supra as well. But to his credit, he's really pushed the company to go back to those cars, the 80s and 90s, that were fun sports cars. They were fun to drive. The turbo Celicas, for example.
Yeah.
Just really energized the product lineup.
They need something to compete with the Miata, right? Because the answer is always Miata. That's why I bring up the MR2. The MR2s were always a lot of fun, and the third gen, the MRS, the Spider, it was a design choice, right? But compared to other cars that had come out at that time, well, I got a chance to test and autocross a bunch of them. You're looking at the TT Cabriolet, the Z3. You had the Honda S2000, the MRS. Somebody lost their number. You had a lot of other cars, and the third gen Miata at that time, and the MRS was so much fun. It was so well balanced. So behind the wheel, you're like, well, I don't have to look at it. And it's great to drive, and it was an absolute blast. And so I'm nostalgic for that. I'm like, bring us back a mid-engine car. And unfortunately, the Elise was the evolution of that idea, but it's a Lotus. So you have to reach a little bit further to be able to put that car in your stable.
Yeah.
God forbid you crack the clamshell, right?
Yeah, that's your day's done.
So, but again, this goes back to that conversation about Toyota's got something in almost every column, and it's super exciting. Now, there's no convertibles, right?
No. Yeah. Not since
the Solera?
The Solera convertible was discontinued,
I see one in my neighborhood all the time. I just kind of smile at it going, that's sort of a rare bird.
You don't see a lot of them, at least in the Northeast. Now in Florida, it's a different story. They're pretty much everywhere. But it was a beautiful car. It was a dream to drive, just a fun car. Had a for convertibles, they had a somewhat usable back seat. You know, you could actually put people back there.
Yeah, it was like what they would consider in the old days a 2+2.
Right.
So you had that
True
extra.
2+2.
Exactly. Coming up on turn 11 again. We are 35 miles into this journey.
Yeah, almost halfway.
3 minutes as we track out. 3 minutes and 2 seconds as we track out of this corner. We're staying a little tight this time. Got some traffic behind us. Let's see, can we hit that perfect 316 on this lap? 14, 15,
Be a
16,
little slow.
18. Ooh, almost 319. So let's talk about Toyota and racing a little bit, right?
All right. Since we're on the track.
Yeah, might as well, right? We're here at Watkins Glen, home of the Salem 6 Hours, where a lot of the LMP1 cars don't come to compete, but you will see the Lexus GT, GTLM, GT3, whatever they're calling them these days, here at the track. So are you a fan of sports car and endurance racing?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I follow Formula One pretty. I would say I'm one of those super fans of Formula One. You know, I remember the days when Toyota was in Formula One.
Oh, nice.
That was.
You're not a Drive to Survive newbie.
No, I've been in it for a few decades. So, but it is interesting to see the behind the scenes and the different personalities in F1 with what Drive to Survive has done for the sport. It's certainly energized it, made it hugely popular, especially in the U.S.
Yeah, motorsport seems to be more accepted now thanks to Drive to Survive.
Now with 3 races in the U.S., that's certainly boosts the popularity. But yeah, I mean, I follow a lot of different racing. I would say, you know, everything from NASCAR to, you know, the endurance racing's interesting. Of course, endurance racing is always tough to watch because it's, you know,
it's a long race.
Yeah, you don't want to sit in front of the TV all day. But yeah,
I make that exception twice a year. Rolex and Le Mans. You gotta grin and bear it. You know.
Yeah.
So speaking of Le Mans, last year, let's talk about the big upset, right? I mean, everybody was gunning for Toyota. Right?
Yeah.
What did you think? Obviously you know how it ended, but what were your feelings on that?
You know, you're disappointed. You're just like, because we had such a great car. You know, it just wasn't our year. You know, there's always next year, as they say. So
well, this year, right? The 101st anniversary of Le Mans.
We'll see what happens. I think we'll certainly be a good competitor. So we'll see what happens.
And Toyota's back this year for Le Mans. That's been announced, along with Peugeot, Ferrari, Porsche, and I'm trying to think who else is in the lineup for LMP1. There's been a lot of churn, right? Is Cadillac coming? Is Acura going to convert their car? Is BMW? I guess BMW's back this year. And then there was Lamborghini. You know, what are they going to do with their hybrid supercar? You know, are they developing a new class? There's been a bunch of just churn, which is great because it means there's new blood coming into the sport.
Right.
So, what do you think are the odds this year? Has Toyota made some changes? Are they gonna be able to dethrone Ferrari?
Well, in our typical fashion of continuous improvement, I'm sure they've taken a look at everything that happened last year. We've learned a lot from that, and I think we'll have a strong showing this year. Let's say. Yeah. Well, the Ferrari's fast. That's for sure, right? So the question always becomes: just because it's fast doesn't mean it's going to last, right? So, and Toyota's known for that reliability, that quality, and you know there have been a few years there where it's like, did it just break down on the last turn of the last lap? Yeah, you got to finish to win.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, last year was interesting, and I was telling people, you know, don't count out Cadillac. The odds are in their favor because they had 3 cars where everybody else had 2.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. It's like if they lose one big deal, the odds are still in their
50%
favor.
50% more.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think a lot of people are hopeful that Porsche is going to do something, right? They are the reigning 19 wins overall at Le Mans. So, you know, can the 963 do it? Being a Porsche faithful myself, I don't know. The 963 is interesting, you know. At its heart, it's a Porsche, but it's really a Dallara. You know, all these kinds of things are happening there. So it's not like the old days of the 962s and, you know, those cars where it was in-house developed from scratch, you know. So it'd be interesting to see what turns out. or how it turns out. But I don't know. Le Mans is, they say it chooses its winner, right?
Yeah.
The winner doesn't, it's not always how you think it's going to turn out. So, and obviously there's a lot of politics too.
Wow. As with any motorsport, right?
So on the Lexus side of the house, right, there's always been a GT3 or GTLM entry. They've been running not the LS, it's the ISF, right?
Yeah, ISF.
Yeah, so that car's a little long in the tooth. Are we going to see a changeover?
Yeah, I don't know on the Lexus side. I'm less involved with Lexus, so I can't really speak what's happening there.
Yeah.
Certainly the ISF, when it first came out, that was just a tremendous vehicle for Lexus, and then, it went away, and then it came back, so...
a couple generations of the ISF there, exactly. So, I mean, I would love to see maybe another generation come out, kind of step up their game. They're competing against some serious hardware in that class now.
Yeah.
The new Porsches, you got the Lamborghinis out there. There's a lot of really, really fast cars. But, again, a testament to reliability. The Lexus is always finish.
Yeah.
So that's good. We just want to see them finish, on the podium. Right?
Exactly, in the top. First and second.
Now, for those that come to Watkins Glen, this is also home of NASCAR, right?
Mm-hmm.
The track is owned by NASCAR now. A lot of people might not know that. They've been kind of buying up tracks throughout the years. So, Toyota's development and racing program in NASCAR, what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I think this year will be a very good year for Toyota and NASCAR. It's, we've had certainly some good success in past years, but I think we have some great teams, some good drivers. So our car looks pretty fast. So I'm hopeful, we could win a championship.
And the rules have changed quite significantly over the years. Because the joke in the beginning was, is Toyota going to be able to develop a carbureted pushrod V8? Like, how's this going to work?
Got to take a step back.
We got to go back 50 years,
Yeah.
But, I think those that are in the know, but those that don't, NASCAR has changed rules. They do run fuel injection now. There's they've modernized a lot of things about those NASCARs. But is there really a huge resemblance between the Camry we see on the track to the Camry we see in the showroom?
Styling wise, there's some resemblance for sure. Technology wise, no, not at all. So the new Camry, of course, is now coming out. Let's say less than 2 months, and it's going to be hybrid only.
Oh wow!
So as with a lot of our products now, it's more and more vehicles are going to hybrid only. Whereas before you might have had a hybrid option. So like for example, the whole Crown family, hybrid only. You've got Sienna several years ago went hybrid only. The new Sequoia, our full-size SUV, hybrid only, and now Camry, of course. I don't know. If NASCAR is looking to maybe update their technology one day and go hybrid, that would be interesting. Formula One certainly dipped into it years ago.
Yep. And there is a whole sub-series of Formula E now and all that.
Formula E for EVs.
There was some news articles that we saw kind of coming across our desk talking about how they are going to be testing some electric NASCARs this year, just trying to see how they do. And we're sort of like, how's that going to work? 500 laps, and are they going to have 3 cars? Like, are they going to be able to have switchable battery packs? There's a lot of questions there. It'll be interesting to see. Probably fast, but the question is, a lot of the electrics, as we know, are quick off the line, but sustaining that long-term speed is hard.
It's and as battery technology progresses, I think that will help a lot of these motorsports integrate more electric into them. So I think we're a little bit limited, I think, by capacity, what we can store on board, and charging times, things like that. So you never know what might happen down the road. 20 years from now, we could be talking about how, those big internal combustion V8s are such dinosaurs. Why do we even have those? But who knows what'll happen in the future with motorsports? But it's good to see that the technology, though, it's being integrated into motorsports.
Yeah. And in some ways, motorsports drives the commercial market too.
Yeah.
It's a great place to experiment, right? It's like a rolling lab, and especially races like Le Mans, a lot of people don't realize that Le Mans, 24-hour race, but by the time they've run the 24, they've run it multiple times because the track is open for more than the better part of a week. And so they do night races and they're doing night practice and testing and qualifying. And the cars are out there for, well beyond 24 hours. They've already proven, they can do that part. Now it's making it to the end of the race. But again, it's these rolling laboratories where it's like, hey, we're gonna, we can try this newfangled technology. I mean, remember the days of Formula One where they were using pneumatic valve actuation? They don't do that anymore, but it was really cool, right?
Yeah.
So you never know. And then, it does take, I hate to say, these days is probably faster, but in the old days, it took the better part of a decade before some of that stuff reached the cars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we move a little quicker with technology now, implementing it. Technology in general is moving so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And the advancements we make, it seems to be, every few years you have a big leap in something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I think we hit that point, especially on the IT side of the house, where we don't need more and faster processors. We need to figure out how to minimize, right, and go low E and all those kinds of things. But the days of that space race, Intel versus AMD, and we have 4 gigahertz processors. You look at stuff now, there's so many processors on board here, but they're small, they're super efficient, low power, all those kinds of things. Because that's a bigger problem with fully electric vehicles, is you need all the electricity to power all this stuff.
There's a lot of drain on the electrical system on cars nowadays. So many computers. So everybody wants more technology, whether it's safety or multimedia, creature comforts. You want your heated steering wheel, your heated seats, your heated windshield. There's just such a draw on the electrical system, and but again, technology will solve a lot of those problems.
Oh yeah.
Moving forward.
Yeah, but like I said, I think we're at this stage now where we're trying to figure out how to minimalize things, bring it down into tighter packaging, take up less space, use less power.
Weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Reduce the complexity of weight.
And then that's one thing, people don't realize. I drive this, or I have a Tesla, or I have that. And it's like, how much does it weigh? It's like 5,000 pounds. It's like that's the weight of an SUV.
Yeah.
What is it? A new Hummer? It's like 10,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's heavy. I think the battery weighs something like 2,000 pounds
by itself.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where new battery technologies are also coming to the forefront. They're doing some sodium lithium combinations and all this kind of stuff. Are you seeing a change at Toyota, or are you sticking with lithium ion for now?
Well, certainly lithium ion is the current technology. We're always pushing forward to improve that and different variants. And there's been some talk about solid state batteries, which I think would be a big game changer if that hits the market. And when you look at technologies like that, and who knows what's going to happen 10 years from now, what battery technology will be like, and how efficient, and how much storage you'll be able to have in such a small package. And it's really going to be the technology that pushes those people who say, well, I would never drive an EV. And then when you bring out a car that charges very quickly and has a really long range, and they're like, well, okay, well,
that's not so bad.
Pique my interest.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what happens. But I think eventually, most of the people who maybe wouldn't consider an EV now, I think down the road they'll certainly probably change their mind when the technology progresses.
Yeah. So there's different versions of the hybrid, since we're talking about technology and EVs. Toyota's never had a plug-in, right?
Oh, this is a plug-in.
Oh, this is?
Yeah, this is Prius Prime. So we have a Prius Prime and a RAV4 Prime. Both are plug-in hybrids.
Okay. So, but that's only available on the Prime?
Prime, yes.
Okay.
So Prime means plug-in, essentially. That's what
Okay, very cool. So that's pretty new then for Toyota, right? Because traditionally they haven't done plug-ins.
Well, we had one, I'm trying to remember the year we brought it out, but we've had it for the last 2 generations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we've had one. The range was, the previous generation had like a 25-mile EV range. This one, the one that we're driving fully loaded in, the XSE, is 40-mile range, but you can get up to 45 in the SE model.
Okay. So how big is the battery then? Somewhere around 16 to 20 kilowatts?
13.6 kilowatts.
Okay, so it's small.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So then how does that work? Because like the older Priuses, you use the motor to recharge the electrical system, regenerative braking, sending power back to the batteries, kind of switching between petrol and electric. But this one being a plug-in, I know how my wife's plug-in works. It wants to be an EV all the time first, right?
Yeah.
And then it'll switch over to gas when it needs it. But in her case, the gas motor doesn't recharge the battery. Once it's depleted, it's depleted. So how does it work in this case? Is it sort of a compromise of all worlds where you can start all electric and then the motor is backfeeding the system like traditional Toyotas?
So we allow the driver to select. It will default to EV mode when you start the vehicle, but you do have a couple of switches here. One, you can put it in auto, so then it will choose either hybrid or EV mode based on how you're driving, what will be the most efficient.
Oh, interesting.
But there's also a manual selection where you can switch back and forth to from EV to hybrid. And I've been doing that as we go around the track, switching back and forth to different modes, based on where I think it'll be most efficient to use the gas engine versus just electric.
Well, and putting it in EV only mode, you're sort of locking out the gas motor too, right?
Yeah. So on some of the more flat downhill, we'll go all EV. If it's like the uphill climb, then maybe the gas engine provides a little assist. But so you can choose, and it'll default to EV initially, and once you use your EV range, let's say 40 miles, then it goes into hybrid mode. Now, still use regen braking and regenerative for the battery to recharge. Is it going to recharge it completely? No.
How much do you generally get out of it?
In terms of the recharge?
Let's say you've depleted all of it. How much can you get back on a trip?
Well, it depends on where you're driving. So I live in kind of the Catskill mountain range. So if I'm coming over the mountain, the downhill side, like a mile downhill, I might see 1 or 2 miles. I'll regain range. So it's not going to be significant. But something that's unique about this particular car, the XSC, it has a solar-powered roof on it that also charges the battery when it's setting in the sun. So you can...
But not while you're moving.
No, not while you're moving. But so if it sits out in the parking lot all day, 8 hours in the sun, you're gaining a little bit of EV range that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Interesting. And you really wouldn't know that walking up to it. So how does...
No.
So they've done a pretty good job of disguising the solar panels.
It looks pretty dark, almost just like a black roof, and but the solar panel, it's not going to give you a tremendous range. You're not going to fully charge the battery if it sets out all day. But again, it's all about those little efficiencies. If you can gain a mile here or there from time to time, it's free, right? You didn't pay for electricity, you didn't pay for gas. It came from the sun.
So in the future, changing battery technologies, is there ever going to be a point where, we're looking at this 2024 Prius Prime now that we'll be able to swap out the batteries to whatever the later technology is? Is Toyota thinking about any sort of being able to retroactively upgrade?
Well, good question. Not really sure if that would be in consideration in the future. I guess it all depends on battery technology and cost. Currently swapping out batteries in a vehicle like this, I don't know if it really makes sense. You got to look at how old is the vehicle, how many miles are on it. Is it worth it? How expensive would this new battery technology be? Is it almost better to just get a new car?
Yeah, it's worth it to those Camry guys that run them for 25 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
Still see them from the 90s running around.
Oh, yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is because there's a question always about recycling, right? And so yes, right now we're being environmentally friendly, but there's the upfront, what does it take to build the batteries and this and that, but there's the full life cycle. And I think a lot of times people don't think about it. Yeah, we'll go buy a new car, but what happens to my old car, right? And so, like, we're being passed by that rabid diesel again. He's breathe new life into that car by getting rid of the old 1.6 liter normally aspirated diesel, putting something more modern in it, this and that. It's still on the road, and that's and that's fun and that's exciting. And there's a lot of people that love to do resto mods, things like that. But does the resto mod community go away with the more modern cars but also thinking about it from the recycling aspect. What do we do with these batteries? Especially full EV cars, where you really
Sure.
have no recourse, you know?
Yeah, well, so even if a battery's not suited for use in a vehicle anymore, they still have value. Of course, the materials in the batteries are very valuable.
Right.
And so recycling, I think, will be a big part of the industry moving forward, because the rare earth materials are so hard to come by as it is now. If we have all these batteries out in vehicles, and eventually we're starting to see them come back, whether it's from salvage yards or whether warranty replacements or just replacements in general, what do you do with them, right? So that's the next big thing, is the recycling aspect, and I'm sure that's a big part of the total picture of EVs and batteries in general. Because as we look at vehicles, of course we have batteries, but everything has a battery now.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
from your laptop to your watch, your phone. I mean, there's just so many devices now that run on lithium batteries. So it's not just cars. I think it's just everything. And the demand for batteries it's not decreasing. It's certainly increasing exponentially.
Absolutely. It feels like every time you turn around, everything's battery powered. Soon your washing machine will be battery powered somehow. Even though it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
But that also gives way to something you mentioned earlier that we haven't really talked about, is the continued investment from Toyota in hydrogen technology, right? There's very few manufacturers still looking at that. I think it's Toyota and BMW at the front of that, and maybe some others here and there.
Hyundai.
Yeah, Hyundai as well. So where do you see the hydrogen technology going, or is it still sort of in its infancy?
It's certainly in its infancy, no doubt. We had the Mirai fuel cell car, which has been on sale in California for the last 2 generations, and the latest generation, beautiful car. I mean, rear-wheel drive, big sedan, just luxurious, a dream to drive. So if you ever get a chance to drive one, definitely take it. It's a phenomenal vehicle. And what a lot of people don't understand about hydrogen fuel cell cars, they are electric cars, essentially. They run on, are driven on electricity to run an electric motor. It's just that instead of having a large battery that you recharge, it creates its own electricity on board using a hydrogen fuel cell, which is really just a chemical reaction of taking compressed hydrogen and combining it with oxygen from the air. The chemical reaction just makes electricity and clean water. So there's truly is a zero emission vehicle. And the performance is great. It's just like an electric vehicle. So the challenge, I think, with hydrogen is the infrastructure for refueling. And while we do have refueling stations in the Northeast, there are very few, and they are kind of slow to being developed.
Yeah.
California was a little ahead of the game with that, and they have several. They have enough refueling stations to support. Of course, in the Los Angeles area, we retail that car, and if you're ever out in LA, you'll see them running around. So it's a great technology. I wish it was a little bit more advanced and was spread to the Northeast, because again, the car is just phenomenal. But we'll see what happens in the future. We've also adapted it for use in heavy-duty trucks. So like semi-trucks, we have them running around the port of Long Beach in California, and which makes sense, really, because you take these large diesel semis off the road and replace them with a zero-emission truck. And while they're not going long haul over the road cross country, they're just running around the port of Long Beach. So with a refueling station there at the port, you drastically reduce your emissions from the diesel trucks by using that fuel cell technology. So I think there's probably some opportunities in the heavy truck industry to adopt that sort of technology.
Beautiful view of the racetrack. Oh, look, we're getting lapped by the Lucid. How fast is this guy going, right?
They did say that the set speed limit was 55, right?
They just set the cruise controls. blowing by everybody. So that's the previous generation Prius Prime.
Yes.
So that's a plug-in as well.
That is as well. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
You can tell by the kind of the double hump in the rear spoiler.
Okay.
So the rear window, that vehicle is somewhat unique, and the rear hatch, the glass of that rear hatch, also has a wave, like a double wave in it for aerodynamics, which apparently was not easy to accomplish. That was kind of an engineering feat of itself to make the glass shaped like that.
So checking in on our stats here, we are 53 miles into our 80-mile trek. Our fastest lap is still a 3:12. We are, according to the computer, you were averaging somewhere around 100 miles into the gallon.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Here,
Yeah, 96.
96.4.
Wow, look at that. So you just switched back over. So this is we're in
EV.
full electric mode
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Probably-
It's so seamless too. It's so smooth.
Yeah, you don't really hear or feel any of the transition. Early on, hybrid technology, you can kind of feel the motors, start up and it shook a little bit. Now that it's just so seamless, it's almost imperceptible when the engine starts or shuts off.
Yeah. Yeah, and my wife's hybrid, obviously it's a Chrysler product. Rumor has it it's Ford's hybrid transmission, although all that stuff is licensed by from Toyota, sort of at the end of the day. And then it's the tried and true, Pentastar V6 that's been around forever, 3.5 liters or whatever. And she asked me one time, she's like, how does it do the transition from one to the other? And I said, well, it's kind of interesting because the trans is going to be turning the crankshaft, oil pump's going to be running, everything's lubricated. It's not like the motor's starting off dry. And having worked for a fuel injection company in the past, using phased injection, it already knows the speed of the motor and it knows exactly where it needs to be in the tables. It fires the injectors. The motor's ready to go.
It starts so quickly.
And that transition is just so smooth, So here we are at our 4-minute pit stop.
Yeah, 4 minutes. This is
roll the windows down.
A
Get
little
some
fresh air.
here.
The stopped raining. Sun's up.
We'll come back after our 4-minute break. All right, we are back underway. We did our 4-minute pit stop with what was that, like a 9-minute lap? Something like that. At the time it was done.
It's a slow one.
All right, so we are on lap 23. We've completed 55 miles. So we were kind of calculating during the pit stop. We've got about 8 or 10 more laps to go, somewhere in that range.
Something like that.
The computer's telling us about 96 miles to the gallon, which is absolutely amazing. It's definitely dried out quite significantly, and we notice it's windy.
Very windy, so it should try even faster now.
But you were also saying that could affect us from an aerodynamics perspective. So
a little bit. I don't know. I mean, this car is pretty slippery, so it's very aerodynamic. It shouldn't have a huge impact.
We got a Crown in front of us. We were chit-chatting during the break about how good it looks. It's so different. It's really a step away from a lot of the other stuff. And what's nice is it's not like you don't remember the old days like Lexus. You're like, well, that's a Camry with some extra stuff and leather. Like the Crown and the Camry look nothing alike, and it's nice to have that choice where it's like, well, you want to stick with the traditional, or you want to go with something like that. It's pretty cool. I remember seeing it for the first time at one of the auto shows, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's very different. And then obviously the big talk of the town was the redesigned Prius, and it's like, hey, this is really, really neat.
Yeah, it's certainly gaining some traction now, and then with the launch of the new Signia SUV, the Crown Signia, I think will also kind of energize the Crown line itself, get more awareness out there. There's still a lot of people that aren't aware that the Crown even exists. They'll come into the dealerships and say, well, what's that?
Exactly. And we were commenting before, from afar, you're sort of like, is that a Toyota? Like, it has some design language borrowed, maybe not borrowed, but it resembles some other cars out there. So it is really, really unique. I mean, today, you see a Camry, you're like, that's a Camry. There's, it's sort of like 911's never going to look different then it does, because then it wouldn't be a 911 anymore, right? That kind of thing. So there's certain cars that are just those halo cars, and they have to maintain certain design language in order to be recognizable, you know. If you and that's where I think some of us get hung up on the naming of cars. Like as just a prime example, when Mitsubishi re-released the Eclipse, but it's a CUV, and you're like, what is this? You know, and the Lancer as well. You're like, oh my goodness. So you think we'll ever see some of the old names come back, like the Cressida or stuff like that?
I don't know. There's room in the lineup. I mean, we have a pretty diverse lineup as it is.
You need a station wagon, though, right?
Yeah.
For us long roof society people.
Yeah. Well, I think the Crown Signia might satisfy a lot of that demand, because it's an SUV, but it's kind of sleek and low, so it's not a wagon. But you know, we have a lot of SUVs. We have, you know, a full line of sedans, and at times it's like, well, if you bring out additional products, are you really just competing with yourself now?
Yeah, and that's what you saw, unfortunately, with like the big three. It's like, you know, and they have so many names too, where let's just call a spade here. You got Chevy, and you've got Cadillac, and you've got Buick, and you're like, but aren't these kind of the same car? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, rebadged versions of the same vehicle.
We call it badge engineering, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And they do meet a certain price point, you know, take away the leather, add cloth seats, you know, those kinds of things. But I think it gets complicated, though, after a while, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, Toyota definitely changing the way we look at things, especially going into the future. So I'm really excited to see, you know, what comes next. So so passing us here on the left, that's that's second or third gen Prius?
Yeah, so that's like around a 2010.
Okay.
So that would be the third generation here.
Okay. The really, really early one was like a little sedan.
Yeah,
right?
It was a four-door, had a little trunk. That was the first generation in the U.S.
Every once in a while, you still see them running around.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they were... it was a quirky little car. It had the gear selector looked like a parking brake handle sticking out of the dash.
Oh, jeez.
And it was you know, very, very different than the controls you would expect in a vehicle. And of course, it was groundbreaking. Right? It was an all new powertrain, and
that guy's flying.
Yeah.
He's making up time. They're going for it.
I think they're racing each other.
Yeah, I think it became a track day suddenly. Like, what are we doing, guys?
Cut the inside, then takes the outside.
It's all the action.
A lot of overtaking.
Yeah.
I guess that's what makes racing exciting.
But
right?
not so much drafting. You would think somebody would want to get behind, you know, another vehicle. Like last year, I mean, outside of my Jeep being one of the bigger vehicles out here, you had some, you know, Ford Lightning and some bigger stuff. It's like, get in that guy's wake, you know? Got this Volvo C30 here. I like those cars. I think they were a fun idea.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they were well recognized.
No.
You know, it is basically shares the same chassis with the 5-cylinder Focus of that time period, because that's when Ford and Volvo were still together. So it has very Italian-looking design. There's some Lancias that look like that from back in the day. So I always thought those were kind of fun cars. Well, speaking of, you know, if money was no object, what would you buy?
Ooh.
Is there a car for you there?
So, money no object. Well, are you talking past or
It
present?
could be anything.
Oh.
We can go old, we can go new. Give me one of each.
So, yeah, definitely top of the bucket list. That's Lexus LFA.
Oh.
Probably the best sounding street car. I think that engine, that V10, is the best sounding of any car. Closest to a Formula One car, I think.
Yeah.
And you can get the exhaust note. It's music.
So that covers all of it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So on our show, sometimes we ask our guests, you know, what we call pit stop questions, and those are things like, you know, the sexiest car of all time. So what do you think is the best looking car?
So one car that I was just really caught my attention when it came out, and I think a lot of the industry, or at least a lot of automotive journalists, also agreed, and that was the Lexus LC Coupe. Just beautiful lines, a long, sleek coupe. It's just gorgeous, in my opinion.
Oh, very nice. I don't think we've ever gotten that as an answer. We usually get things like, Jaguar E-Type, Aston Martins, old Ferraris, stuff like that. Everybody seems to lean back into those, 50s and 60s cars. But that's cool. A good answer.
I don't think our lap timer reset the last lap.
Oh yeah, we're suddenly doing like a 5-minute lap. What the heck's going on there?
Well, that's not good.
Well, they'll have to figure it out, right?
I guess you take the time and split it in half.
I guess so. They take the distance and figure it out. It is interesting that they're doing this app-based instead of using the MyLapse transponders.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this app was custom built for doing this sort of thing? Was it?
I mean, it looks like it because there's other racetracks you can select, and other events in it. So I think it's a newer app that's maybe gaining some traction. People are trying it. It's probably a little less expensive than having the transponders in the vehicle.
Yeah. The only thing I've come across, having tried phone-based GPS systems on track, especially at speed in the past, is the update time, the update interval to the satellites, and the fact that there's only so many channels in the GPS on the phones.
Yeah.
So as an example, obviously you need at minimum to just do general highway, get you to where you're going. You need three points to triangulate, right, from satellites to say, okay. But the accuracy is the problem. You're down to a couple hundred feet of accuracy. Right. But when you have an object moving at super high speed, you need more. So for instance, like a system, like a solo-based telemetry system like an AIM, they're manufactured in Italy and all this kind of stuff, they use a minimum of 12 points to be able to triangulate on a vehicle, especially moving at triple digits. But the accuracy is down to millimeters or whatever it is. So it's a lot different because you want to know those braking zones, you want to know those turn-in points, you want to know how many G's are being pushed in a corner and stuff like that. So it's really interesting that they would use something like this, and I think it works because of the speed that we're going at. We're really not going more than 50 miles an hour, except for these guys that are passing us here.
Yeah, I think we've been lapped like 3 or 4 times by some of these. Oh, there goes the Volkswagen again.
Yeah, right. Those guys are just hooning it up. They're having fun. Oh, the Lucid.
Some people lose patience, right, with the speed and I just want to go faster.
Yeah, I'm on track. Come on, Wow, there is just a gaggle of cars going into what would normally be the bus stop. I gotta hand it to the guy with the Volkswagen pickup though. He's not smoking, so as far as diesel goes, it's clean diesel.
There's no black smoke for sure.
I know. Or he's just staying out of it, so it's all turbo at that point. Because if you do romp on them, they tend to belch. Now that's one thing I've been pretty happy about with my Jeep is it doesn't smoke at all. However, they figured out the exhaust gas recirculation and obviously the DEF and all those other kind of more complicated systems they had to add to it. I've never once seen it belch smoke, which is pretty cool.
That's good. And
I've actually run it on several tracks at full song, so it's been pretty interesting. We, as instructors, sometimes we have fun and we'll take out our tow rigs, go out together,
Yeah. Sometimes it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
That is very true, and also enjoyable on racetracks in the rain because you got all-wheel drive and you can go play and all those kinds of things. It's always entertaining though when you've got somebody with like a Ford F-350 dually long bed that says, you know what, we're gonna go out on the skid pad and do donuts. You're like, oh, okay. So the track is always so much fun, and it's such a great opportunity for people to drive their cars the way the engineers intended them to be driven. So, I mean, granted, this is a much more low-speed event, but, you know, there's no reason you couldn't take this out to a track event.
Oh, yeah.
You know, run it through its paces.
You should have a Prius stock class.
Spec Prius.
Yeah, Spec Prius, right. That would be fun.
There's spec everything else these days.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, you know, and there's some legacy classes that are still around. Spec BMW, Spec E36 BMW, Spec 944, you know, stuff like that. Those still hang around. Spec Miata, one of the most popular racing series of all time.
Easy to get into, right?
Yeah.
Somewhat affordable.
Yeah, exactly. The Miata's about, you know, the answer is always Miata, as they say.
Oh, a reset.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We might actually have a legitimate lap time now.
We'll see.
64 miles, so we got 16 miles to go. So 2.5 miles, less than 8 laps to complete that. So somewhere around 6 or so. So we'll have done like a total of 30 some laps by the time we're done.
Yeah.
It's really shaping up to be. You know, this is actually really, really good for the autocross portion of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Nice
wet
and dry.
autocross, that could, on that tight little lot that they use back there, that could be not a lot of fun.
That's just a lot of work for the course workers.
You want to see how understeer works? We'll show you real quick. And you know, the weather leading up to this event has been just cats and dogs rain the whole week. It's had a couple moments there of sun, but even the eclipse was a bit of a disappointment. It was cloudy, like it is now. If you're looking at the video, it was a lot like this on Monday.
Were you able to get a good glimpse of it?
For a brief moment. Yeah. How about you, where you were?
Yeah, I was able to see. We had some clouds, but still just tended to open up at the right moment, and you know, got to see about 92% at least coverage. So not the 100%, you know, the totality that you may have gotten up in this area, but but still awesome to see. A lot of hype leading up to it.
What have we got coming up here? We're gonna
Somebody on the inside, huh?
Yeah.
I shouldn't close the door, is that what you're saying?
That is a older Corolla.
Look at that.
Oh, and on our inside here is a Kia EV6.
Oh, look, the Monroney label's still on the window. Brand new.
Hyundai's making some big pushes in the EV space too. A lot more. They added a lot more to their Ioniq line, as they call it. You know, then they got people like Kevin Bacon doing commercials, right? Ev, like Kev. So this car is equipped with a camera-based rear view mirror.
Yes.
So what do you think of that?
I like it. So we've started offering this on a lot of our vehicles now, and you know, it's certain vehicles. I think it's more advantageous. Pickup trucks, for example. If you got something in the bed, or if you got an SUV with a lot of people in the back, what you don't get is someone's head in your rearview mirror, right? So you get a nice, clear, wide-angle view of what's behind you, and no obstructions, and you can flip back and forth at any time. So if you like, you know, the camera gets dirty or something, you can just, you know, flip it to your regular mirror, and it's a regular mirror.
Very cool.
Yeah. However that is.
Yeah. I didn't realize they could do both. That's really, really neat. So the screen is basically behind the mirror.
Exactly.
Oh, very cool. And, you know, you've seen a lot of that lately. I think it is, what is it, Polestar, that's eliminating the back glass because they're using the camera-based rearview mirrors.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, what's the point of the back glass if you don't need to see out of it?
Solid.
Reducing some weight.
Yeah.
Because glass is heavy, people don't realize.
Yeah, it is.
And that's also nice to know that if something were to malfunction with the camera, then you can always default back to that original, you know, mirror.
So, you know, at times if it's snowing, a lot of road grime. Sometimes the camera will get a little, depending on the vehicle where it's placed, it could get some dirt on it, and then you get a little obstruction, and you can just flip it back to the regular mirror.
So is it the same camera as the backup camera?
No, it's different, and it varies on its location on vehicle. On this vehicle, it just happens to be right beside the backup camera.
Oh, okay.
But some of them are actually behind, like on an SUV, behind the rear window. So the nice part about that is it doesn't get dirty, and the rear wiper would clean the glass. So you really don't have to worry about it any obstructions.
So when you're going in reverse, does the rear view mirror and the backup camera work at the same time?
They do.
That's cool. Giving you a little bit more perspective.
Yeah.
So.
And you have some adjustability. You can zoom in, zoom out, things like that. So if you like to see a little zoomed in version of what's behind you, you can do that.
Nice.
Or a little wider view, depending on your preference.
It's so quiet.
Yeah. If it wasn't so windy.
You would almost hear nothing.
Yeah.
68 miles. Approaching turn 10. 2 minutes 28 seconds as we... No, 2:32 as we hit the apex here. So we got to kill 45 seconds to do the perfect lap. It's a long time. You've been hustling.
Yeah. It's a tailwind.
It is very windy out here. It's very windy, but hopefully it'll push off some of this weather. I mean, it's been clearing up every lap that we've been out here, which is awesome. 2:58. So we got about 15 seconds. For some reason, I don't remember this section of painted guardrail the last time I was here. I don't know if that's new or if I've just ignored it all this time because I'm usually looking further down the track. I'm kind of wondering what that's used for. Because it's not where our start finish is at start finish.
Mm-hmm.
So. There you go. That was good.
Now it's dry. We can push a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think we probably have to peel back. This guy's rolling. Did he pass us like not long ago?
Like 2 laps ago, yeah.
We got to peel it back, I guess, on the back straightaway a little bit. And that's the problem with the short configuration. You don't have the boot where you can, really either make up the time or lose the time, like in turn 7 and things like that. Going up what we call 600 horsepower hill.
Yeah, you don't realize how much of an incline you got here. It's just a steady, gradual increase.
Well, have you ever seen the elevation map for Watkins Glen?
No.
So from turn 2 to the bus stop, which is up here by the Sunoco sign, it's a 120-foot rise.
Yeah.
Right?
Significant.
Over, I think it's like
period.
a quarter to a half mile or something like that. But the backside, turn 7, which is the toe of the boot to the heel of the boot. So from 7 to 8, it's a 160-foot rise in that short distance.
Oh, wow.
So that's why we call it 600 horsepower hill, because in order to go fast, you need lots of power. So this is way more gradual. It's a lot longer. I'd have to go back and specifically remember, like, it's exactly this length, because I'm always calculating to the entrance of turn 4, which is the bus stop, versus coming all the way to the top like we're doing here. But yeah, it's much, much steeper on the backside. And it's one of the beauties of East Coast tracks is that they're developed around natural terrain versus some of these new like Tilka tracks like Coda and places like that where it's like it was designed flat on a computer.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Road Atlanta as an example. I mean, coming out of was it 11-12 complex there under the bridge? If you've ever been or watched it on TV, when you line it up, there's these paint marks on the bridge because you cannot see on the other side of the rise. And then it's a 120-foot drop on the other side, and you just sort of commit the car and hope nobody's on the other side.
The white flag.
Oh wow.
One more,
but we're 10 miles short. Uh-oh.
I think it's usually like 78 miles. typically, but yeah.
The Lime Rock is another one too, where you feel like you're falling off the side of a building. You know, it's so steep.
Yeah. New Jersey Motorsports Park has that pit exit that kind of just like drops off.
Yeah.
Like, right over the hill.
Yep. And it recently repaved it in JMP.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was hoping to go opening weekend, you know, try out the new asphalt, because the track's usually always faster or whatever, but just didn't work out scheduling wise. But I'll get there this year. And JMP, we go often enough, so.
It was 316.
There you go.
Nice.
Oh, we got the Metro behind us. That thing was a absolute hoot to watch last year during the autocross. The converted Geo Metro or Suzuki Swift, whatever you want to call it, that they made into an EV. That thing is really quick. I think, if I remember, it did something over 100 miles to the gallon, or whatever the equivalent is, because it's an EV now.
Yeah.
Last year, so.
It's from SUNY Broome College, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, granted, you can't put anything in the trunk. It's all, you know, battery packs and wires and such, but I'm really curious how, and maybe need to investigate more with those guys, how they built a car, how they offset the weight. You know, balance is important. That was a front-wheel drive vehicle, but the battery packs are in the trunk now, so you've moved everything around, you know, so really interesting to know more about how they built it. But it's very cool to see it out here. And the duct tape on the front end also is nice.
200 mile an hour tape.
Yeah, 100%, right?
Certainly helps. Keeps the bumper on.
There they go. 100% electric. Speaking of Hyundais, got a Ioniq 5 coming up on us here. If I remember, won like car of the year in 22 overseas, like in Europe and stuff. I really enjoy the retro design of that, very 80s feeling, you know.
Reminds me of an Atari.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Atari graphics.
But it's cool, it's different. I mean, it's like, why not? I mean, push the envelope a little bit, right?
We're down to 3%.
Down to 3% battery power now.
So, just enough. Just enough.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, in mixed mode driving, and you said it normally you can get, what, 40 miles out of the battery? Now, that's temperature dependent as well, right? Yeah. So, a little bit better in the warm weather?
Well, so extreme temperatures aren't great for lithium batteries. So, if super cold or super hot, neither one's ideal. But a day like today is perfect, right? 55 degrees, you couldn't ask for more mild temperature.
They don't even let us do that extra lap to get the most. So we're at 73 miles.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit of a sacrifice there. And so this one's going to be a throwaway. But I will say, Jeremy, it's been a pleasure riding with you in the new 2024 Prius Prime. This has been a lot of fun. Again, it's shaping up to be a great day, and we'll see how the autocross goes and the awards and all those kinds of things. But I really do appreciate you letting me ride with you, learning a lot of things about Toyota. Where are we going? Herding cats again.
Start working on them, okay?
Oh, we got to check in. We got to give them our numbers. So where are we at? Let's see where we're at, right?
Yeah, let's pull up here and stop.
99.9 miles per gallon.
So it's at least 78 miles traveled. So where's that at?
73.2. 99.9.
You guys need to add fuel?
No, I don't think so.
I hardly used any. 99 miles per gallon.
Yeah, hold on to this and you guys should be good because you don't need to add fuel.
Nope.
Your odometer's good. I've got that up there. It should be good. Just
Okay.
wait for that.
Awesome.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, this is us signing off from the 20th anniversary Green Grand Prix. Tune in more later.